reduce the frequency and the intensity of load shedding in the short term and ultimately liquidate load shedding, it is important that the minister does have some degree of, if you like, powers to be able to execute and prosecute this responsibility. And key to this in relation to outcome number one has to do with the extent to which the minister is able to engage with the ESCOM board and to what degree is the minister able to exert, of course, working with the ESCOM board, some of the priorities from a new generation point of view, from the optimization of the existing fleet. I'm going to share with you what that means in the context of the MOU. So what has been the major development since we last met? I think we met just after the 16th of December. That's the last time that I gave you an update in relation to the Energy Action Plan. And I think part of the commitment that ESCOM had made was that we'll do everything in our power to ensure that we keep the lights on during the festive season. I was making the point that it should not just be candle lights as we celebrate one of the most sacrosanct, if you like, days in the Christian calendar, but the light should also come from what we have in ESCOM has installed. And in that regard, I really want to say thank you very much to the ESCOM team, the board, the CEO, but in particular, Mr. Ngumalo, Beki Ngumalo, and the team, Eric, the rest of the general managers at the various power stations. We have been working during the festive season to ensure that we get to address the issues of the fleet to continue to perform, but also readying the fleet to ensure that once there's a ramp up of demand, the units are able to return back to service and they remain on service, and they are very efficient in the delivery of the megawatts. And I'll give you a sense of what that planned maintenance was during the period of significantly lower demand. I was making the point just the other day. I was asked that, of course, this is lower demand. What else could we have expected? We have expected ESCOM to keep the lights on. I keep on saying that context is important. Go to December of 2022 and you will see that we're at stage 5, stage 6. And during this period, for a significant amount of days, we didn't have load shedding. So context is important, and that's why that appreciation is key. And of course, part of it is as a result of when you went to that December of 2022, you didn't have the 3 units at Kusile. So it's an important part to mention. We had these units back, and then you will see that we then offset those additional megawatts by ramping up even more aggressively your planned maintenance. So thank you very much, Mr. Nguman. I think it's important that as we register the marginal gains, what I call marginal victories. So this is a stepwise approach for us to get to a situation where you have electricity 24/7, 365, essentially having no load shedding for a year and eliminating it. It starts with 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, a week, a month, and then before you know it, 6 months, and then a year. And then we do accept that, given the fact that the majority of these units still remain unreliable. Of course, we are addressing that through planned maintenance. And I think the key measure there is that when the units come back from planned maintenance, we should not have repeat failures. And if you had to do an account of what the team has been doing, you will see that they've reduced on repeat failures. And thanks to the leadership of the generation team at ESCOM, exceptional work. So we do appreciate that. And I make the point about the units being unreliable as we turn the page getting into 2024, and then we saw that the units went out and there was an initiation of load shedding. Of course, we are getting through that recovery. We're experiencing a period of no load shedding. But what is the point that I'm making is that they will have these periods of days of no load shedding and there will be days of load shedding. I think that's an important point. So So if someone were to ask me what is the outlook, we did make the point that the system still remains unreliable. We are working on these units. So I can't stand here and say to the country that now there will not be load shedding going into the future. And that's why when the alert goes out, it says no load shedding until suspended, until further notice. Because we have no control on some of these units, they are extremely unreliable. And I will show you the work that we are doing to ensure that we get to a situation where they are more reliable. We've got additional buffer for us, even where you have instances of a cluster of units failing, that you don't have to initiate load shedding, or if you do, it's not at intense level. And again, as accolades to the Eskom generation team, Eskom did announce its summer outlook, and if you look at it, it was making the point that of course, we should be at not more than stage 4 of load shedding, and that summer outlook includes the December period, the January period, but the team has done exceptionally well to keep it at levels significantly lower than that. So that's the first development since we have met just on the December performance, the remainder of the December performance. And then the other one is that Unit 1 at Kusile, remember there were significant delays in relation to Unit 1. The initial timeline was that we were meant to return it by June of last year, but we returned it about 5 months later, what we call an outage slip. They were giving you regular accounts on that. And we're confident from the work that the generation team has done that we'll not have a repeat when we want to return Unit 2. So Unit 2 is out. Remember, just a bit of context, Quebec Unit 1 and 2 were extending the license of the only nuclear power station in the country. We had to do significant amount of work to meet the regulatory requirements, compliance, so that we can get the license extension. So we're taking out these units. I'm happy to say that as part of the robustness of this exercise, that Unit 1 in Quebec is now on full load, it has passed what we call the full load rejection test. So there's a plethora of tests that needs to be run, and that was passed that test on the 30th of December. So now Unit 1 at Quebec is unleashing the megawatts that is required, and we hope that it will continue to do that for the next 20 years. And then the other development since our last engagement is that Unit 5 at Kusile is now synchronized, and I must say that that power is intermittent. What do I mean? They are doing a number of tests. It will go to full commercial operation. Or the average period is about 6 months, so they continue to do the test. But as they do the test, it does give us the megawatts. And for now, it has been running at 60%, so you can see it's not at full load. They'll take it out, fix what needs to be fixed. There's a lot of things that they need to do, such as balancing and optimization tests. So they are doing that so that we are sure when the unit is now in commercial operation. So essentially giving us the megawatts uninterruptedly going into the future, that it does that as per the OEM promise. So Unit 5 is doing that. And thanks again to the generation team. We kept to that promise, did say that by end of December, early January, it will be synchronized. And again, the team has kept at that. And then the other one is in the last briefing, or the briefing before the last one, I did indicate that the DMRE will be taking out the RP 23 for public comment. Now it's out for public comment. And I really want to urge that your comments should not be restricted just to, if you like, public commentary, engagement with the media. That does not amount to a submission. So a submission simply means that you make a written response, ideas, what you think of the RP, you submit to the portal, you submit to the where you are advised to submit to, because Cabinet has taken a view that the IRP as it stands, of course, represent the totality of the views of Cabinet, and that let's test these views with the general public, and let's hear what the public is saying. So I really want to encourage that you do take an opportunity to make those submissions. And as and when the DMRE occasions opportunity for people to make oral submissions, I really want to encourage that you do exactly that. So it's particularly unhelpful or not sufficient just to make just general commentary in the media. It's important that you subject yourself to that process, because Cabinet really wants to benefit from the multiplicity of views in relation to what people think of the RP, because I think, if you like, it represents the totality of how we want to address the energy security in the country. So it's not an intervention, the RP, I must emphasize. So essentially it's an articulation of South Africa's policy stance in relation to the various sources of energy that are going to power the South African economy going into the future. And the RP does admit that there's been intervention. The Energy Action Plan is an intervention. What is an intervention? An intervention is a set of actions that are time-bound, that are meant to resolve a particular problem at a particular juncture. So the Energy Action Plan seeks to resolve the load shedding problem. The Energy Action Plan does not necessarily result in an energy secure future. So it's an intervention that is meant to do what is required in the short term. Of course, there are some of those interventions that are enduring. They'll contribute to the aggregate of our efforts to ensure that we secure an energy future. But the IRP does that in the most comprehensive and prolific fashion on how we want to balance these energy sources going into the future, and will benefit immensely from the contributions. And then the other major event is the signing of the powers, or the MOU, between the Minister of Electricity and the Minister of Public Enterprises. The ESCOM Conversion Act does identify the Minister of Public Enterprises as a shareholder unit. And then it goes further as to say that the relationship between ESCOM and the shareholder will be codified and in a package, a document that will in the most elaborate fashion state what that relationship is. So what the MOU does is to tamper with that document in relation to that memorandum of incorporation, if you like, that articulates in the most crystal manner what the relationship between the shareholder representative and ESCOM will be. So what the MOU does is to tamper with that, to ensure that we are very explicit around that. So what are those areas of attention? So the first one, with regards to the responsibilities of the Minister of Electricity, is to focus full-time on aspects of electricity crisis and the work of the National Energy Crisis Committee. So this is the work that we have been doing, of course. But I think what is more telling is the second part. It says exercise authority over ESCOM board and the management on ending load shedding, and ensure that the Energy Action Plan is implemented without delay in terms of a proxy as defined below. So a proxy simply means that the minister, who's a designated shareholder representative, will then have this other minister to execute some of those responsibilities as envisaged in that I think is the incorporation that determines the relationship between the shareholder and the ESCOM. So now you have another player. So this player comes in the form of a proxy. A proxy means that on behalf of what the shareholder, the designated shareholder, would have done, now is this minister that is going to execute that function. This part is important in the context of the first outcome of the Energy Action Plan. Remember, I said it's about fixing ESCOM. It's not the only intervention that we are making within the totality of the Energy Action Plan. I said that there are 4 other outcomes, but this is the one that is ESCOM specific, and the last one on the issues around the reforms at ESCOM, creating those 3 entities. So those are the ones that are ESCOM specific. But the one on accelerating investment by private sector, by definition, is not necessarily ESCOM specific, but ESCOM plays a role from the point of view of grid access. And then the third one talks to the accelerated procurement, public procurement of renewable energy. That sits with the DMRE. That's not necessarily ESCOM specific, but ESCOM plays a role on the transmission side, again, on ensuring that there's grid access. The fourth one is ramping up the rollout of rooftop solar by industry and household. That's not ESCOM specific, it's industry and household. But the first one on fixing ESCOM and the last one, and that's why it's important that we understand this MOU to be addressing those two and not necessarily about the other three. And then it goes further to say that the Minister of Electricity will also ensure that we expedite the purchase of additional capacity in collaboration with the ESCOM board. So it does appreciate that board has got a fiduciary responsibility. So remember that the board's responsibility is narrow, it's just focused to ESCOM. They've got the fiduciary responsibility to protect the interest of ESCOM. The minister's responsibility are much bigger than ESCOM. It's about the sovereign interest. So it's important that there has to be some degree of alignment and asymmetry on how ESCOM board sees the ESCOM's role in the purchasing of additional capacity, and how the Minister of Electricity sees that contributing to the interest of the sovereign. And that's why it says that in collaboration with. And then also improving generation capacity and purchase of additional power. So what we get to address almost on a consistent basis, and I'll go into that, is to address the first part, improving generation capacity. What I've referred to, what Mr. Ngumalo is doing on improving the performance, retaining those units back into service, improving the energy availability factor. That collaboration is important. The visit to the power station is not a tourist who just goes just to go and have an experience and an appreciation of how these assets look like. It's about a more comprehensive, in-depth technical engagement with the general managers, of course, under the auspices of Mr. Ngumalo, to ensure that there's a common appreciation of the interventions that are required to ensure that we're able to improve that generation capacity. And that's why we come on a regular basis to the country to share with you the performance in relation to the EAF. That scientific measure that does accounts for two major variables. One is the reliability of these units, the rate at which they fail or not fail, and second is their efficiency, the degree to which the megawatts approximates the, if you like, the design capacity. And then the other one is to oversee the implementation of ESCOM generation recovery plan. So what that does is an admission that the responsibility of the generation recovery plan is a domain of ESCOM. Of course, the board takes charge of that as the accounting authority. But it's important that we get to oversee it because of the sovereign interest, that ESCOM's performance has got a direct relationship to the sovereign's ability to resolve load shedding. So it's not only the only player, but it's a major player on the resolution of this. And that's why overseeing is important. Of course, we'll put mechanisms to do that. We're already doing it, by the way, some of this work. And thanks to, if you like, the openness of the ESCOM board, the executive management team, just an appreciation that even before the MOU gets to be signed, there's work that needs to be done. I think the South African economy is hemorrhaging jobs, it's shrinking, people are going into conditions of destitution as a result of load shedding. So let's do something to resolve this as we are waiting for this matter to be resolved, which is finally having been resolved. Ensure that the generation fleet performs optimally, which results in supplies security and low levels of load shedding. Exactly that point. So when you go to power station, it's not about just someone who's got nothing to do, but an appreciation of what are the technical requirements in addressing this load shedding problem, understanding the performance of one unit to the other, and not just understanding, if you like, the power station, but just the individual units. What are the pertinent issues that are undermining our ability to respond? What are the common factors that result in these units failing. Of course, the generation team more able to do that, but part of this exercise is to ensure that there's alignment, there's symmetry, to the extent that the executive authority can assist in and abet the resolution of those problems. Then we work together. It's something that we've been doing. And then the major one, well, the other one, because all of them are major, ensure that matters dealing with transmission are dealt with, including the issuing of requests for proposal, requests for information, for financing of new transmission lines. So we have moved in this area. Now we are sitting with that authority. And you will see that in the next week or so, because some of these interventions we are making, we're pulling ESCOM. It's important that there's that appreciation. The ESCOM is responsible for the transmission development plan, but we work together to determine what those corridors are. And of course, it's a matter of public knowledge that the ESCOM balance sheet is weaker. So it's important that we tap into private sector liquidity to be able to finance, if you like, transmission expansion. We've spoken at nauseam, 14,000 kilometers needed in the next 10 years. I want to argue is needed much earlier. I will put that to 5 to 7 years. The ESCOM financing regime has got sufficient to pull us for the next 3 years, about 1,400. I'm of the opinion that you need to do significantly more than the 1,400 in the next 3 years. I think you need to be closer to about 6,000. Of course, the ESCOM balance sheet does not allow for that. And that's why the minister then will work out on these solutions of how best do we finance that without relinquishing state ownership of the grid, but tapping into private sector liquidity. I did say that we have done extensive amount of work. So here we are closer to the line on what the solutions are. We went to cabinet, 1 or 2 things that they have been adjusted. We have satisfied that. And then I'll come back the next engagement. I'll be sharing with you now. How are we financing that? We will share that with you. And then also developing and agreeing. So this is, if you like, extends from the last one, developing and agreeing on financing models and the options for transmission together with National Treasury and the Presidency. So I think it's important that in whatever choices you are making, you are not going to expose the sovereign, if you like. So you don't get to a situation where you want sovereign guarantees, because that's the domain of National Treasury. So it's important that we don't have our lines crossed. So it's important that in that solution, we satisfy what our Treasury's outlook in relation to the performance of the fiscus, what can place the fiscus at risk. They are the ultimate determiner of what needs to happen. So it's important that all of this thing is within the context of what the fiscus can afford. But like I said, we have socialized all of this with National Treasury. So we are confident. We have agreed on the options. We'll make those public, the options. And then we get to contract now. And the thinking now is to ensure that we have a dedicated body that gets to contract, so that your ability to contract on the transmission is not caught up in the bureaucracy. There is over-bureaucratization. And part of the problem why we have landed here is the inability of the state to be more agile, fast in the manner, and innovative in the manner in which it responds to this. Transmission is very key, just for those who are watching at home, because once we have this generation capacity, you must evacuate the electrons. And there's a lot of electrons that are stranded. When I mean stranded, there are projects that are producing the megawatts, but the economy is not getting the benefit of the megawatts because the electrons are not there, the transmission lines are not there. So it's essentially, you are producing cars, but you don't have roads on which these cars can drive on. So the cars are parked in the garage, they are parked at the factory. So we're building the roads, the freeway, the arterials, to ensure that the megawatts get onto the grid, they go to industry, they go to household. So transmission is an indispensable part of the resolution of load shedding. So that's what the MOU addresses. And what has been the performance? So I think key here really is, I've made the point that PM peak during December really plummets, it goes down. So really there's very little to talk about. You can see around the 26th, Christmas Day, PM peak was at about 20,000 megawatts. To put it into context, when you experience extreme weather conditions, when we have conditions of snow that we experience during the winter period. Remember, we had snow here in Gauteng. PM peak went to 33,000 megawatts. So you can see the difference between what has been the extreme of on the demand side, 33,000 megawatts, to what has been the low on the demand side. The variance there is about 13,000 megawatts. But then what do we do in that instance? So what we do is to ramp up plant maintenance. So you can see the big story there is around plant maintenance. So the period of the 22nd of December to the 29th of December, we use the opportunity of the fact that the demand has plummeted, has gone down significantly. So we don't just fold our arms and celebrate and say there is no load shedding. There is no load shedding, but we're doing something else. I did say that the delta, the difference between that winter peak and the low PM peak during periods of low demand is about 13,000 megawatts, as you see there. Then we took out 9,000 megawatts for plant maintenance. So I think it's important that there's that appreciation, the ramping up of plant maintenance. And that's what the team is doing. Just going back to the point I'm making, I did say that the system, the grid is unreliable as a result of legacy issues, underinvestment, no investment in some instances on plant maintenance. ESCOM did not have sufficient funds to invest in that plant maintenance. Thanks to the intervention by National Treasury that allowed that fiscal support. Now ESCOM has gone aggressive in that plant maintenance, almost trying to recover what we have lost over a period of time. It's going to take time for us to do that. But given the fact that there's been some improvement on the generation side, the plummeting on demand, the gap is huge, then we're very aggressive on plant maintenance. So even during those December periods, when you didn't see load shedding, we're very aggressive on plant maintenance, so that when these units come back, they come back healthier. When demand is going to ramp up, we're going to ensure that we don't intensify load shedding. Of course, someone was asking me the question. I was on some platform saying, yeah, but it's the 2nd of January, you're already implementing stage 2 load shedding. Next week, referring to this week, people are coming back to work. This is poor planning. I was saying that ESCOM is led by exceptionally intelligent people with enormous experience. They've done this for many years. Mr. Numalo, Eric and the team, they've done this for over 30 years. So in their planning, they are very deliberate. They also have an appreciation of the oscillations on the demand. So as we ramp up plant maintenance, they know that at some point you must retain these units so that you are able to address the expected surge in demand. And that's why we are experiencing what we are experiencing. Because in the line of questioning the last time, what the person was suggesting was that if on the 2nd of January, when the demand is this low, you are at stage 2, stage 3, it means that when industry opens, you are going to go to stage 8. No, it's not a linear relationship. It's a dynamic relationship. And it's you only accumulate that if you have done this for 20, 25 years, and also the kind of support that National Treasury is giving. And I'm happy that the team is doing the kind of work that we are doing. Of course, as part of, in the context of the powers on new generation capacity, having engaged with the ESCOM board, we have views around what is possible in the short term on the new generation capacity. So that's something that is going to receive attention. And of course, the immediate past week, you have seen that demand plant maintenance is still at about 9,000 megawatts, but we are beginning to come down. I think today we are even below 8,000 megawatts. So it's coming down that curve on plant maintenance. Why is it coming down? Because we are expecting that demand is going to go up. That's why you need to come down on plant maintenance. So that's what the team is doing. So it's a scientific approach on resolving a very complex problem. But I'm confident about the ability of the team. And of course, one thing that the team has improved exceptionally well is on outage slips. Outage slips means that we don't keep to our promise to return the units at the time at which we had promised to return them. So the more the delay, the greater the outage slips. The lower the outage slips, it means that we are keeping to that promise. and the team is doing exceptionally well in addressing this situation. So I really want to say that, of course, you are experiencing a situation where you have no load shedding. I've made the point, the system is unreliable. We are working on that. And that's why you say this, ESCOM says is suspended until further notice. Because in the nature of a system that is unreliable, then you are likely going to have shocks. It's those oscillations, no load shedding, then load shedding, and then no load shedding. We really want to flatten the curve, first to ensure that there's significantly lower levels of load shedding and get to a point where you are able to eliminate that load shedding. And of course, it's a function of a multiplicity of intervention, in particular, the issues around new generation. There's so much that the team can do, but you need the new generation and also the transmission to enable that new generation, especially by private sector on the renewables, to get onto the grid so that we all get the benefit. And once we address those, then it increases the capacity available. Then we should be in a position to get closer to the resolution of the crisis. Thanks, Tagan.
Thank you very much, Minister Kgosientsho Ramokgopa. Colleagues, we will now commence with the questions and answer session. And then perhaps before we start, I would like to introduce everyone that is on stage here in front that's joining the Minister. We have Mr. Silas Zimu, who is the Minister's advisor. Next to him, we've got Mr. Begin Malo. As I indicated earlier, and as the Minister indicated, he's the head of generation at ESCOM. He's also joined next to him by Mr. Eric Shunmakam, who's also working with Mr. Mumalo in generation at ESCOM. So colleagues, we will open the floor to questions from members of the media. As we usually do, we start with those who are in the room. By a show of hands, please, when you take the microphone, introduce yourself, share your name and your media house, and then from there we will take questions from members of the media who have posted their questions on the platform, the WhatsApp group. Can we put our phones on silence as well? We'll start with Antoinette.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, there was some prospect of bonuses for power station staff or power station managers last year, depending on performance. Can you perhaps just tell us whether those bonuses were indeed awarded or not? And then Kusile 1, 2, and 3. How far are the outstanding investigations to the incident, the consequence management, and also the permanent solution, please? And lastly, the additional capacity that you negotiated with neighbouring countries. Have those negotiations brought us some electrons yet, and if not, what is the delay? Thank you.
Thank you, Antoinette.
Good morning, Minister. Helmut Royce, Business Report. Minister, last briefing I asked you about what was happening in terms of the imports. They came down from 954 in August to 808 in September and 786 in October. But I didn't get a response. When are we likely to exceed 1,000 megawatts? Then the other question I asked last time was, when are we going to move to 14,000 megawatts as an assumption rather than the 16,000 that we've got now? We have been running at 14,000 on year there for many weeks now. Then in terms of the transmission, the car power ship has been now told that they can't access the transmission. Could you tell me what does that mean for the whole program? Are they out of the running now? And this was supposed to be an emergency intervention 2 years ago, and now in 2024, and we've got no resolution there. In a similar manner, we were at Glasgow for COP26. We appointed a Daniel Manere to run that. He then resigned, and since then we don't know what's happening with the just energy transmission. Are we going to get any money today, next week, next month? Is there a timeline involved in terms of Treasuries also gave Eskom 8 billion in December. Is that the sort of monthly amount that you expect going forward, or will that change? And then lastly, we are in the summer rainfall area, and the 3 pump storage dams schemes in Eskom are in that area. Have they been filled up to 100%, or what was the situation in terms of rain and filling up dams? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Delene Erasmus from Business Day. Can I just get some clarity on, with the new MOU that has been signed, does the Minister of Electricity have any powers for procurement, even if it's on an emergency basis? Can the Minister of Electricity issue requests for proposals?
Thank you, Denine. Are those all the questions in the room? Can we proceed to questions that have been shared on the WhatsApp group? I'll go to you, Takalani, to share those.
Thank you, Takan. I have about 13 questions. Please guide me on how we can go about them.
Can we take 5 for now?
No, thank you. The first 3 will be from William Hon from Network 24. Number 1, how has the Minister and NICOM received IRP 2023? Is this in line with any inputs the entities may have provided the DMRE, and is the IRP's approach to the future of Eskom's coal-fired power stations, what is the Minister desired? And number 2, what percentage of Eskom's 30 billion rand initial OCGT budget remains for the rest of the financial year? And have there been any cases or suspected cases of sabotage or damaged caused to, for instance, coal mines at power stations by contractors or others in the last 6 months? And number 4 from Chris Yelland, will there be oral public hearings as part of the public consultation process for the draft IRP 2023, or will the relevant economic assumptions and technology cost assumptions in draft IRP 2023 be made available publicly well before closure of the public consultation process, and will there be a net-led consultation process? And we have Lamis Omaji from News 24. And the question is, the IRP 2023 shows that South Africans are to face energy insecurity until 2030. And why has the IRP not solved for energy security sooner? Thank you.
Thanks, Takalani. We'll start with Mr. Mumalo, who will take some of the questions, and he will be followed by the Minister. Thanks.
Thank you, Takane. Good morning to the media and viewers at home. I think let me start with the questions from Antoinette. Thank you for those questions in terms of the bonuses and those things for the staff at the stations and the PSMs. Obviously, it depends. Like it's a normal performance incentives that we have for the team. If they meet the performance, then that we do the reconciliations at the end of the month and then see whatever the target that we place. If people meet that, then there will be those incentives. So we have not reconciled now. Obviously, we will then, well, based on the performance of what was given to the team, we will look at that. And then your second question was with regard to the Kusile investigations. I must say that we have now received all the reports that have dealt with the issues at Kusile. And we have also reported previously that there were issues of the design's nature and technical nature, so which we are dealing with both of those issues as well. And then somewhere there were some shortcomings within the stations and the staff, which we are also going to be looking at that. But the main issues that we focus now is to improve the designs of the plant and then make sure that those issues that are cause for concerns are being addressed and dealt with. And then in terms of the recovery, we have already, after the initial phase focusing on the temporary stacks, we have started now in full force with the recovery of the main stack. Obviously, because of the construction industry break in December, the business has just returned now for construction. So that work is continuous and it's in full force. We have done all the assessment and then we should be on time as what we have promised as well. I think the team from Kusile, as the minister, they have proven that working together with our partners, we can achieve the milestone that we have approved. So I'm quite confident that we will also achieve the date that has been put for us to put back to the main stacks as well at Kusile. And then the other question from the business report was, I take it the imports you are referring to was with regard to Kaurabasa as well. If that is the case, we have some period during December as well where we have reduced the load it was a planned intervention, but currently we are receiving the full capacity now from that. The plant is back on full capacity as well. And I've taken note on the planning assumptions that we will also discuss with our system operator, because remember, they independently put the planning assumptions. So we did say in our summer plan that ours is to focus on running below 14,000, which you also indicated that we have been in that range, but obviously system operator must look at different changes on and then independently, I'm sure they will, when the time is right, they will adjust those, but we will also engage with them. The Capital Minister will leave that one with you. And then there was also the issue about the budget for the OCGTs. Or let me deal with the pump storage one still on the business report. As you know, the pump storage, obviously, the water that we use is a closed circuit system. So the rain normally will just feed the feeder dams, which is outside that. So it's more a top-up issue, really. But currently, there's no issue on all our pump storages. There's enough reserve for them. So it's and the feeder dams that feed into them, they are also at a good capacity. As you have seen, that we have got some good rains in the areas where our pump storage are situated. Yeah. And then I think there was a question from William on terms of the original budget of the total 30 billion. We are left with about 4 billion of that for the remainder of the year. So we are hoping that we will try and manage around that as well, so to balance the system accordingly. And then also on the issue of sabotage, yeah, as I'm sitting here now, I've not been reported of any other issues of sabotage as well at this stage. So there might be some issues of reworks that happen within our partners, but the formal report that points to any sabotage, I'm not. We have not been given any direct situation on that regard. Yeah, I think Minister, I've covered most of those. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Becky. Antoinette, on the issue around the imports, and specifically, I think this will relate to Mozambique. No, we're not getting that benefit. And in fact, we have had engagement with ESCOM. Now we do understand the issues around the prohibitive nature of some of the asks from our partners. So what I've done is to initiate a discussion with my equivalent from Mozambique. I think from the explanation of ESCOM, I think it's prohibitive. I don't think that we can expose the country to such an amount of tariffs. Like I said, I'm not at liberty to disclose what those numbers are, but just take it from me to say I don't think that you can arrive at any rational justification for that amount of what is the ask. And then on the Helmut, thank you very much, and thanks for coming through. I guess you are here because apparently when you are online, we don't exhaust all of your questions. Our sincere apologies. On the transmission part, of course, the car power ship issue, so they had a deadline of the 31st of December. So they have not exercised that. So that grid allocation then reverts back to ESCOM. My views are clearly known. They are public in relation to the length of time and also what the tariff structure should be with regards to emergency procurement. You make an important point to say 3 years later that the emergency procurement has not happened to a point where that grid access has lapsed. So that says lapsed, so it means that you simply can't exercise that. And that's why earlier on I had said that we have generated what we think are possible options in the areas of emergency procurement. But what we want to do is to have that engagement with the ESCOM board, because I think it's important that we don't speak out of 10 rather, and determine what is possible and plausible, so that when we go out into the public domain, it's something that is sufficiently engaged and socialized between the ministry and ESCOM. You can see that I'm leaning towards ESCOM as the procurer of that new generation capacity. So that's a conversation we'll be having. But the long and short of it is that has lapsed. So I guess that you can't talk of that emergency procurement in a manner that we do, because there's no grid access. Now ESCOM has got the liberty to see how best they are going to allocate it. Of course, the downside of it is that we have lost out on that opportunity. We can't get those megawatts, so we need to go back to the drawing board, and that's the work that we are doing. And we have no intention of tampering with what the ESCOM and the IPP office had arrived at. Purely procurement process. There were rules, and they kept to those rules. By the 31st, they had not exercised, so there's no other way. We have to go back so that we maintain the integrity of the process. I think that's important. And then on the JET IP, we have scheduled an engagement when we come back from Davos in relation to how we are going to access this, the possibility of accessing the funding for purposes of transmission financing. As you make the point, I think there's if you like, a facility that has been made available. We have not exercised that right to access that facility. Of course, is a function of extensive negotiations. But yes, now that the road has been paved, we know what the responsibilities of the ministries is, then we can move with full speed to exercise that, of course, working very closely with Minister Barbara Creasy, because he's the one who coordinates government's interface with the international partners group, and therefore the JET IP program resides with Minister Creasy. So we have already at the ministerial level had those conversations, and I'm confident that before the end of the month I'll come back to you, but not just also on the JET IP funding opportunity, but on the totality of what are the options we want to exercise from a transmission point of view. Dennis, yes, so it's very clear. I mean, from the public procurement with regards to renewable energy sources, that sits with the DMRE, so that has not been brought to the ministry, so that dispensation remains. But there's some ability for Eskom to get new generation capacity. Of course, the only bottleneck was that condition from National Treasury that they can't enter into new generation, if you like, procurement. So that's a conversation we'll have internally. Because from where we are, we think that the Eskom should be a player on new generation. And of course, we need to engage with the Eskom board. We have an engagement tomorrow with the subcommittee, and we hope to find each other. Otherwise, you are almost advocating for the withering away of Eskom on the generation side. So over a period of time, although Eskom is a dominant player, the IRP does do projections with regards to the future of coal. You'll see that it tapers down, and there are new energy sources that are coming on stream. So if Eskom is precluded from participating on new generation capacity, because it's largely, if you like, coal-based, if you like, SOE. Of course, with a bit of nuclear, we're increasing the capacity of nuclear, but significantly it's coal-based. So if it's not going to procure a new generation capacity, it's not going to be a major player. So it means that Eskom is going to be obliterated, at least on the generation side. And I don't think that the country can afford that. That as you introduce reforms, you are encouraging private sector participation, and we have seen that there's an insatiable appetite by private sector to invest in new generation capacity. We need to protect this asset. I think that is Eskom. And of course, like I said, it's a conversation we'll have with Treasury. But the long and short is that on that public procurement on renewables, that sits with the DMRE. There's a part in the MOU that talks about if you like, alignment between the ministry and the DMRE, but that alignment has been there. I think it's that for purposes of completeness, it's also codified in the memorandum. And then, William, on the issues around the IRP, the question there was NICOM's views canvas. So this is the process of policy formulation. So what will happen is that it's led by the bureaucracy from a technical point of view. So what they will do is that there's a significant canvassing internally in government, and internally in government in this instance is all the departments, including the technical component of NICOM. And then what then happens is that all of this thing then it gets to be lifted to the cabinet subcommittee on the economy, and then ultimately finds its way to cabinet. So you know that the political component of NICOM really is made up of ministers. So when this IRP went to cabinet, is the totality of the views of cabinet, including but not limited to those cabinet members who are members of NICOM. So there's been sufficient consultation. So this is the totality of cabinet's views, the totality of cabinet's view. I'm making that point because there would have been others who might see it this way, that way, but ultimately cabinet resolved that this is what we think is the quality of IRP that must go out for public comment. We'll receive those comments, and then it will be, to the extent that we find that appropriate, adjusted accordingly, and then we then have the IRP. And then on the issues, Chris, on oral hearings, like I said when I started, this is a process that is championed by the DMRE. I know that there's a consultation they're doing. Is it this afternoon or tomorrow? They will explain how that unfolds. But the point I was making earlier on was that I really do want to encourage experts, commentators, everyone, industry to make those submissions. I think it's important. So if they create a platform for oral hearings, they'll say that people must then take the opportunity to make those submissions. If there's no oral hearings, written submissions, we really encourage people to make those submissions. If it's a combination of the two, use a platform that best suits you. But I think the importance is that we really want to hear what are the views of South Africans, experts and the like on the IRP, so that at the end there's an appreciation that if you like, it's something that takes everyone on board, of course. When I say everyone on board, it doesn't follow that the views that are expressed by everyone are going to find expression there. But there has been, if you like, an effort to ensure that we give opportunity to substantive quality submissions, and we're able to illustrate that we have engaged with those and arrived at a determination on what we think is appropriate going into the future. And on my G, it says the point we are making, the 2023 doesn't solve for energy security sooner. So I made the point earlier also, if you look at the IRP, it makes a number of admissions there. So it makes an admission that first is that is a policy intervention over a period of time. So that's the first part. And then it makes an admission that there is interventions by the state which are directed at resolving the current crisis. And it advises the reader not to read the IRP outside those interventions. So it doesn't see a scenario where there are interventions outside the IRP. But we say the totality of our efforts to address energy security includes, amongst others, this intervention. What are some of those interventions? Is the energy action plan that we get to give updates on a bi-weekly basis. And then there's issues around the JET IP. What are this financing that is made available by the International Partners Group? We take all of that into account and then admit that those are the ones that are geared to help us to address this situation sooner. And then the RP then goes beyond. So I'm advising that don't see them as separate, but see them as an aggregate of South Africa's response to the energy challenge. And therefore, those interventions addresses the sooner, and then the IRP really is a more enduring solution, and it does present three scenarios. Of course, it's also a function of our definition of what is sooner, but I really do take it from what you are saying. Sooner means ending load shedding as soon as tomorrow. That's the point, the sooner you are referring to. And that's what the EAP seeks to do, the issues around the JET IP seeks to do, and then your IRP really takes you beyond the sooner to ensure that there's energy security. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Minister and Mr. Nxumalo. We'll now take more questions. We'll start with Takalani so that you give us the remainder of the questions that have been shared on the WhatsApp group, and then we'll come back to hands in the room.
Thank you, Tsakani. We'll start where we left off with Lamiso Amachi. And the question is, with the 5 RMIP PPP projects losing grid access, how will this impact plans to improve energy security? Does government know if other shovel-ready projects are available to replace that power? And are there any provisional dates for the Kopak unit to go offline? And we have a set of 4 questions from Terence Klima, representing Engineering News. Number 1, what does the Minister make of the draft IRP, assuming ongoing load shedding until at least 2027, which seems to contradict the NICOM message that load shedding can be resolved during the current year? And given that the Minister now has authority to release RFPs for grid infrastructure, what are the next steps? And will this be done through the ministry or structures such as DBSA or the IPP office? And what impact could the new IRP have on these grid investment plans? And will similar MOU also be signed with the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy? And we have Chris Yelland from Business Intelligence. The question is, will there be a similar memorandum of understanding between the Minister of Electricity and DMRE? I think this question is repeating itself from one of the questions from Terence Krema. And we'll go to Angelo Coppola from CGTN. And the question is, what kind of dispute resolution processes have been put in place should any questions around jurisdiction of areas of responsibility be in dispute? And Chris Yelland, and for Business Intelligence, which is the last question from my side. And the question is, which ministry is responsible for procurement of new generation capacity and for producing and publishing the IRP 2023 and thereafter? Thank you.
Thank you, Takalani. Any more questions in the room? This is our second and final round of questions.
Thank you so much. Minister, it's Peter from Kaya News. Minister, how are you doing in line with the Pretoria High Court order to take all reasonable steps by not later than 31st January to ensure that public hospitals, schools, police stations are not affected by load shedding? But also, Minister, maybe before that, just the status of electricity now in the country. You can just sum it up based on your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We had a hand up on.
Minister, could you just explain in terms of the 8 billion that Eskom got from Treasury in December? I asked whether you expect that to continue going forward every 8 billion per month, or do you see different amounts there? And then also in terms of the meetings going forward, you said bi-weekly. So can we expect the next one to be on Sunday, the 21st of January? And will I see you on Thursday? Sure.
Deneen Erasmus again from Business Day. The RRP includes several mentions of the delayed decommission of coal-fired power stations and provides the new schedule that is one that's come from Eskom. When will we get a better idea of the cost implications of this new decommissioning schedule and whether, what it means in terms of affordability of electricity and also the feasibility of delaying the decommissioning as it's proposed now in the RP 2023? I think we're still waiting for the report from Treasury to make public, and we've also not seen any internal reports from Eskom on the matter.
Thank you, Deneen. So those are all the questions. We'll start with Mr. Ngamalo, who will respond to the question on the status of electricity, and most questions are directed to the Minister. The Minister will then take the podium. Thanks.
Thank you, Tsakani. I think, Minister, this round it looked like most of the questions are with you. I think the first one was with regard to Quebec. I think that one is an easy one. Quebec 2, we reported even before the last briefing that it came off around 11th of December already. So that Unit 2, we are already busy with an outage on Unit 2. So we indicated that with the lessons from Unit 1, we plan to bring this unit by the end of September this year, and so far obviously still early days of taking out the fuel of the reactor. But so far it's going so well. But we will monitor as we go forward as well. Yeah. Then in terms of the cost of the extension of life or maybe of the delayed decommissioning, I think we are still busy with those processes as well. So once we are finalized, we will come back on those issues as well. Yeah, thanks, sir. Thanks, Minister.
No, thank you very much. Omaji, on the question of the 5 projects, I guess that they suffer the same fate as the one of Cap Powership. And what it does really is just undermines our ability to resolve this problem in the shortest possible space of time. So, like I said earlier on, we have been and we have concluded in fashioning what we think are the most plausible solutions to help us to make interventions quicker. And I think what was missing there was our ability to coordinate those interventions with Eskom, because Eskom is an indispensable player in the resolution in the execution of those proposals. And with the powers, then we are able to do it quicker. And then with regards to Terrence's point in relation to what the assumptions are in the IRP. So he makes the point that it's out of sync with what NICOM has said, ending it by 2025, and then talks about 2027. So you'll see that they generate a number of scenarios. So there's an optimistic case, and then there's a pessimistic case, and then they take a conservative view and err on the side of conservatism. So by that they mean that they take then the view that this load shedding can only be ended in 2027, and they do admit that there are these interventions that are being made, and these interventions are yielding fruit, but for purposes of that planning, they advise they are taking a conservative view. I must say that DMRE is convening, I think, an engagement with yourself today at 14 hours. I think they'll be more prolific in taking you through what those scenarios are. But the point I'm making is that there is no tension. So if you go in that Horizon 1, it does make the point that there is this approach in relation to ending load shedding, and then what NICOM has raised, and then there's the view that they are taking, that no, they are taking the more pessimistic view. So we are fine with that. We can live with that. And of course, I think the taste of the pudding is in the eating. The work that we are doing is to end it sooner than what is in fact articulated in both those scenarios. And then on the issues of grid investment, like I said, I'll come back to you. So part of it also includes which of the DFIs you are going to work with, because there's an idea of incubating this body that is going to prosecute the responsibility of making sure that we are able to procure, if you like, or first access the financing that is required, and then contract, and of course that asset reverts back to the ESCOM, of course, through the new body that will be created on the transmission side. So I'll come back to you and share with you those details. So we're engaging with both the DBSA and IDC. But the point we make is that really is generally the same principle as it was adopted when you do the IPP on the generation side. So it's something that we have thought about intensely, and it's something that has been done in other parts of the world. So we're drawing on those parallels from those experiences, and then get to domesticate a solution that fits our own South African conditions. So it's a response that has got South African characteristics. No, we have no plan to sign an MOU with DMRE. I think the complexity in this, why there was a need on the MOU now, was that you had an SOE that at times was not having some degree of clarity. At which point do we engage this minister? At which point do we engage the other minister? That complexity doesn't exist with the MRE. So between myself, Minister Mantashe, the DG, and the technical team in the department, if there's any tension, we're able to resolve it. The earlier one, if the tension arises out of a player that is outside, if you like, the nucleus of government, like I said, that SOE, which is at an arm's length from government. Of course, the board has got fiduciary responsibility, protect the interest of ESCOM and the like. At which point do they listen to this minister and that minister? And then this has been clarified. So that's what this MOU really attempts to do, and that does not obtain when you come to DMRE. Angela's point, the MOU does say that how you resolve that dispute. Of course, we hope that will not arise, because I think it's crystal clear. But in an event that it does, the president will be the arbiter, and then it explains how you are able to lodge that dispute. But I think the relationship that we have had with Minister Godana, I don't think it gets there. I mean, even in this, outside the ambit of an MOU, we're able to ensure that we're in sync. And the only reason, like, you needed an MOU was to manage that relationship now with ESCOM. That what it simply does. And then on the issues of the Pretoria High Court, so yes, we received legal advice. One of the issues that requires clarity, and I'm glad that you quoted it verbatim, is that the Minister of Electricity must take reasonable action. I don't know what is reasonable action. I'm sure if I were to ask any, there will be an interpretation on reasonableness as there are people you ask the question. So we need that clarity so that if you get to a point where you say the Minister of Electricity is in contempt of court, you are able to explicitly say, we are asked you to do the following, and you have not taken those reasonable action. Let me give you some of the examples. So it gets to say that it isolates the facilities, police stations, clinics, schools. But where I'm sitting, one of the key infrastructure assets that I thought if we were going to go that route should be protected is your water assets. Because you will not have clean drinking water. You will have prisoners, people in correctional services, they will not have water. You will have patients, they will not have water. So it's just understanding how we arrived at this grouping of the assets outside other assets. So that's the clarification that we're going to ask, and then that comes in the form of you going to the court and saying that we want to wait an appeal, and it's on the following. What we are not disputing, and that is in our original papers, and I've said this in public even during these briefings, is that load shedding limits the constitutional rights of South Africa. So that's not in dispute. That we have admitted. So I think the issue is just clarity on those issues. And then Helmut, on the 8 billion rands, no, I don't know the cadence at which, the rate at which that fiscal support gets to be given to ESCOM, what the conditions are. So I wouldn't know what that 8 billion covers. Of course, the ESCOM board will make that determination. There would have been an agreement between National Treasury and the board on how that fiscal support gets to be extended to ESCOM. I guess that the 8 billion rand is in the context of that, so I'm not privy to what that is. And then on the issue of bi-weekly, no. In fact, we minimum bi-weekly, but we want to do them weekly. Part of the problem was there has been changes. So the other time we're going December period, and then the other time there might be an event. Let's assume that I was meant to give you a briefing this Sunday, but I will be away at a party engagement. And then we then take it to Monday. But ideal, it's Sunday, so we are going to keep it to Sunday. This is more important than any other thing. For an example, the minister is going to go to Davos, join the South African delegation. The president says go there, I can't say no, so if I'm not available, because this is led by the minister. So yes, there will be those tweaks, and and in many instances you will see why the reason is. But we keep to Sunday, we keep to a week, at the most bi-weekly, but a week is more ideal. As we enter now this period of transmission and other intense intervention, you'll see that there's a lot quality that we can deliver outside just telling you how the week was. I think we need to go beyond that. And part of the reason why we had gone bi-weekly was that, I mean, we really don't want just to be just predictable, just sharing with you how the system performed, but something more qualitative. And now we have, if you like, an arsenal to present to you on what is qualitative. And I think we can do it weekly, and then Sundays is a set day, unless there is something that undermines our ability to deliver on that day. So let me just take the opportunity to thank everyone for coming through. We really wish you the best of 2024. We will do our best, as we have been doing, to ensure that we keep the lights on. If there's an extraordinary event, you know, that we come and share with you. We'll remain to be transparent. We accept and welcome the robustness of the engagement. I guess that members of the media, the experts that are here, thank you very much for dedicating time, because you are asking these questions on behalf of the South African people, and of course you have the knowledge and the know-how of how these systems work. We really do appreciate this, the line of questioning and engagement. It really helps us to improve and enrich the submission. But thank you very much. May God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the Minister, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, to Mr. Ngumalo and the ESCOM team, and to everyone, all the members of the media. We've come to the end of this media briefing, and as the Minister has indicated, we'll reconvene again very soon for more qualitative updates on the developments. Thanks.
Yes, they were together. You mentioned yes. Oh yes, I see that.
We want to interview him. We want to do interview.
Yes. Oh, I must get my number right. Yeah. When I'll
Johnny?
Okay, you know what, Peter? Just, I need to ask you a question first for Aisha's package. I'm going to ask you for Aisha's package. Ask me afterwards. That's fine. I'm okay. How are you? No, but I'm off from tomorrow and I'm just going to sit at home. Or speak to anyone. I don't want to do anything. I want to ask you something about this. So basically, they're going to be installing these devices that when residents switch off the freezers and they say how they're going to be incentivized. So I want to ask how you feel about that and if that's a possibility that you do roll that to the country. Is that fine? Okay, it's just one question. Yeah. I'm also ready.
Hey, the office has asked for a quick live.
No.
Yeah. So I will just ask him when he's going to be Good morning, I'm good. How are you, Teddy?